Welcome to the Dibley Diaries for this week. In Thought for the Week, this week we'll be thinking about the passage where there are complaints being made about Jesus' disciples not washing their hands properly before they eat, and then Jesus is talking about how it's really important to put God's commandment before human laws, human rules. And that led me thinking for the rural challenge about how many rules there are, particularly in rural churches, that have to be kept by our church communities. So there are rules about what you can do to your church building, what if you want to change something, what you can do, how you can apply for permission to do that, all the things that you have to do for that. There are rules about safeguarding in your community, rules about safeguarding if you do any children's work, rules about who can be married in your church building and what conditions are around that, what legal conditions around there, what is the particular vicar's responsibility. There are rules about how you bury human remains if you have an open churchyard, or how you look after a churchyard which is closed, which might be the responsibility of your local council actually to maintain that. There are just rule upon rule upon rule upon rule. And I've been reflecting upon that this week, and I'm not sure that there's one single place where these rules are written down in a really understandable way. Now, I know that canon law is on the Church of England website and you can go through it, but sometimes that doesn't seem very practical to know how to know what to do in each particular situation, and it's just really tricky. I don't think there is a single easy to read document which says these are all the rules and this is what you need to do about them, and that's partly because they will vary from place to place depending on the exact circumstances, sometimes about the building. And I think this is a bigger burden for people in rural ministry, not only the vicars but also the PCCs, the church councils, and people. The buildings are more likely to be listed, so things that you do to them, the churchyards are more likely to be open. If it's a pretty place, people are more likely to come and want to be married in that church building. And we haven't even started on the rules about what your worshipping community can do and what they can't do and how you meet those rules. And so I think for me, I wanted to just say, actually, it's really complex. There are so many really complex rules, and if they're just kept in the vicar's head, it's quite a complex thing for them to keep in their head and be able to explain to people all the time. So actually it can be quite distracting from other aspects of ministry, the kind of just how do we keep the rules. I really wish that there was one simple guide that would say that you could look up and go, actually, this is my problem, what should we be doing about this? And it says, oh, the rules are this. You just have to stick to the rules. Of course, if you get stuck, you can contact your senior clergy team, but it's just another thing to juggle and just another set of things to be concerned about, to speak to the relevant authorities about, or to juggle in the middle of the life of mission and ministry of the rural church. Thought for the week this week is based on part of Mark 7, where there's an interaction between Jesus and some Pharisees and scribes who've come to see him, and it's about rules, and it's about the keeping of rules. So what it starts off with in Mark 7, 1-8 is the Pharisees and scribes complaining about the fact that Jesus' disciples are not washing their hands properly in the traditional way, following the correct rituals before they eat. And they complain to Jesus about this. They just say it's not right. And as part of the set of readings that we have from Mark 7 tomorrow, Jesus turns to them and says, you have abandoned God's commandment to follow human tradition. You've abandoned God's commandment to follow human tradition. And that's a really interesting thing for us to think about. Now, I am not saying that you should not wash your hands, because I'm a big fan of hand washing. I don't know if you remember back in the COVID pandemic, we were all being encouraged to wash our hands really well. Now, I did wash my hands as we were encouraged to wash our hands, although I'm not sure I ever did the whole sing happy birthday twice while you're washing your hands. I know in the very, very early days of the pandemic, when the hand washing advice was just issued, I bumped into a parent of a small child, and I said, oh, this is what they've been talking about at school, and he was like, I did wonder why my child was singing happy birthday in the toilet. So yes, they were singing happy birthday whilst they were washing their hands, following the advice. But there are all sorts of situations where actually we can see that following a set of human rules can be difficult. Now, I have in the back of my mind a story that I heard about this, and if I find it, I'll put the source in the description below. But it goes something like this. 3 teetotal Scottish missionaries go to visit a village not in the UK. That's basically what I remember. But the bit that I really, really remember is that they were welcomed into that village with an alcoholic drink, and 2 of the 3 did not drink that because they thought keeping the tradition, their rule of being teetotal was important. And the 3rd one drank the drink. And when the 3 of them were on their own later, the 2 who didn't drink had a real go at the guy who'd had the drink. And the guy who had the drink said, you were so offensive to them not touching the drink. Why did you not drink the drink that they offered you? It was part of their welcome. It was part of their hospitality. You should have done it. You should have taken that drink to be welcomed into that community. And I think it's really interesting what human traditions, even within our quite small and modest church communities, we can put in the way of actually following God's commandments, of loving people, building relationships with them, of being able to help them hear the story of God, listen to the gospel. What is it in our church communities that we might be doing which are putting a barrier between us and being able to preach the gospel and to follow God's commands? What is it that we do or that we don't do which would make a difference to being able to share the good news of Jesus and to keep God's commandments? Because they're our tradition, they're just things that we are used to, we're really used to doing them. So what are those things? We need to find them, and we need to think, is this something which follows God's commandment, or is this something which is just our tradition and our rules but is not important? The Dibley moment for the week this week is really my reaction to something which happens in The Vicar of Dibley. In Series 1, Episode 4, The Great Storm, at the end we find out that Geraldine has taken a large donation from somebody to replace the stained glass window which was damaged by a tree fall in a terrible storm, and at the end the big reveal shows that Geraldine has given most of the money away to a famine relief charity and has installed plain glass windows, and everybody's standing beautifully looking round out of the window at the beauty of the scenery, and it makes me feel sick. It gives me palpitations because Geraldine has broken so many rules and a lot of legal trouble she's in. So there's all sorts of charity rules about if someone gives you a restricted gift that you're supposed to spend it on the thing that they give it for you. That's all part of the whole how charities work and the legal framework around charities, and there's all the kind of listed building framework, all the things about how when you're doing something in a listed building everybody has to agree, all the planning authorities have to agree, or Historic England has to agree, everything has to agree. And so by doing this, which might seem amazing and generous and all that, Geraldine's really at risk of being sacked and getting kicked out of her house and all those things. So yeah, a real Dibley moment where I just think, oh Geraldine, you can't have done that. That was just something which would have got you sacked, even though you were following what you thought was the right thing to do. Well, that's it for the Dibley Diaries for this week. I pray that you and your village have, however large or small, have a really blessed week where you can follow God's commandments.